Perry Anderson's arguments within English Marxism is a compelling exploration of the theoretical and political debates that shaped Marxist thought in England during the 20th century. Anderson examines key figures' ideas and tensions within English Marxism, critically assessing its intellectual legacy and political impact. His analysis highlights both the achievements and limitations of this tradition, situating it within the broader context of Western Marxism, and the challenges it faced in addressing the realities of British society. At the heart of Anderson's work is an engagement with the contributions of V.P. Thompson, one of the most influential figures in English Marxism. Anderson provides a detailed critique of Thompson's seminal work, The Making of the English Working Class, praising its innovative approach to history and its emphasis on agency, class consciousness, and the lived experience of the working class. Thompson's humanist Marxism, with its focus on culture, morality, and the everyday struggles of ordinary people, marked a significant departure from the structural determinism of classical Marxism. Anderson acknowledges the importance of Thompson's work in recovering the voices and experiences of marginalized groups, as well as its impact on social history and cultural studies. However, Anderson also identifies significant limitations in Thompson's approach. He critiques Thompson's rejection of Althusserian structuralism and his polemical stance against the broader trends in Western Marxism. Anderson argues that Thompson's emphasis on historical particularity and cultural specificity sometimes led to a neglect of the systemic and structural dimensions of capitalism. In Anderson's view, Thompson's hostility to theoretical abstraction and his insistence on the primacy of human agency risked underestimating the constraints imposed by structural forces on social and political change. This tension, Anderson suggests, reflects a broader antinomy within English Marxism, which struggled to reconcile its commitment to historical specificity with the need for theoretical generalization. Anderson situates Thompson's work within the broader intellectual landscape of English Marxism, contrasting it with the approaches of figures such as Raymond Williams and Stuart Hall. He highlights the contributions of Williams, whose work on culture, literature, and ideology expanded the horizons of Marxist thought. Williams' emphasis on culture as a site of struggle and his development of concepts such as structures of feeling and cultural materialism enriched the analysis of power and resistance in everyday life. Anderson recognizes the theoretical innovations of Williams, but critiques his tendency to prioritize culture over the economic and political dimensions of capitalism. This critique reflects Anderson's broader concern with the fragmentary and eclectic nature of English Marxism, which he sees as lacking the theoretical rigor and coherence of its continental counterparts. Stuart Hall's work on ideology and cultural studies represents another important strand of English Marxism that Anderson engages with critically. Hall's analysis of race, ethnicity, and identity, as well as his emphasis on the role of popular culture in shaping political consciousness, marked a significant departure from traditional Marxist frameworks. Anderson acknowledges the value of Hall's contributions in addressing issues of race and identity that were often marginalized within Marxist theory. However, he critiques Hall's shift away from class analysis and his embrace of postmodernist and post-structuralist perspectives, which Anderson sees as diluting the transformative potential of Marxist critique. A central theme in arguments within English Marxism is the tension between theory and practice that has characterized the tradition. Anderson argues that English Marxism has historically been more closely aligned with political activism and labor movements than with theoretical innovation. This pragmatic orientation, while rooted in the realities of British politics, often led to a neglect of the more abstract and philosophical dimensions of Marxist thought. Anderson contrasts this with the continental tradition of Western Marxism, which developed a more sophisticated theoretical apparatus, but was often disconnected from practical struggles. He suggests that the relative insularity of English Marxism and its focus on empiricism and historical particularity limited its ability to engage with broader theoretical and global issues. Anderson also critiques the historical conditions that shaped the development of English Marxism, particularly its relationship with the British Communist Party, CPGB, and the broader labour movement. He argues that the dominance of reformist and trade union politics in Britain created a challenging environment for revolutionary Marxist theory. The CPGB's alignment with Soviet orthodoxy further constrained the intellectual development of English Marxism, as it discouraged critical engagement with alternative perspectives and limited its appeal to a broader audience. Anderson suggests that the legacy of this political and institutional context continues to shape the limitations of English Marxism, particularly its failure to develop a coherent strategy for socialist transformation. A key focus of Anderson's critique is the lack of engagement with international and global dimensions of Marxist thought within the English tradition. He argues that English Marxism's emphasis on national history and culture often led to a parochial perspective that failed to address the global dynamics of capitalism and imperialism. Anderson contrasts this with the work of figures such as Lenin, Trotsky, and Luxemburg, who developed a more comprehensive analysis of capitalism as a global system. He calls for a reinvigoration of Marxist theory that integrates the insights of English Marxism with a more global and systemic perspective.